go ahead and get started with Genesis chapter 12 and starting with verse 1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country, and from thy kindred, and from thy father's house, unto a land that I will show thee. And I will make of thee a great nation, and I will bless thee, and make thy name great, and thou shalt be a blessing. And I will bless them that bless thee, and curse him that curseth thee. And in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed. So notice the blessing that God gives to Abraham, at this point still being called Abram. He said, I'm going to make of thee a great nation. And we know that when it says, in thee shall all families of the earth be blessed, that's going into the Messiah being from Abram. But notice the prophecy is to make a great nation out of Abram, right? God's people would come from Abram. So Abram departed as the Lord had spoken unto him, and Lot went with him. And Abram was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran, right? So if you recall from last week, all of Abram's family moved from Ur, which is like Babylon, modern day Kuwait, Iraq area, and he moved up into Mesopotamia, right? Eastern Turkey-ish type area. Still might even be Iraq, but northern Mesopotamia, in between the two rivers, you had Haran. And I don't know if I have it on a map. Give me 1 second. I might be able to show you on the map here. I could definitely show you the approximate region. I don't know if I could show you with an ancient map. Let's see if it's on the map of Assyria, the city of Haran. Yes. Okay, so it does actually show. So as you can see here, there's Haran, right up here in ancient Assyria. Here's Ur. I know you can't really see Ur right there. Let me zoom out a little bit so y'all can see it a little better. All right. So this is Abram's journey right here. This is a map of Assyria. Came way later. All right. But this is just to show you the cities. All right. So he started with Ur. They moved up to Haran. That's Abram's dad and his brothers and their whole family moved up to Haran, the city up here. All right, the city right there. And now the Lord is coming to Abram and telling him to go down into Canaan. All right, with Lot. And they named it Haran. Abram's family named it Haran based off Abram's brother who had died, Haran. And we read about that last week. I just wanted to show where these areas were. He was 75 years old when he departed out of Haran. And Abram took Sarai his wife and Lot his brother's son, and all their substance that they had gathered, and the souls that they had gotten in Haran. And they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And into the land of Canaan they came. All right, so they ended up getting a lot of servants who worked for them. They ended up getting a lot of cattle, a lot of possessions when they were in Haran. They got pretty rich, pretty wealthy. And Abram passed through the land unto the place of Sikkim, and unto the plain of Moreh. And the Canaanite was then in the land, right? So it was all populated by Canaanites. All that area was populated by the African Canaanites at that time. And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and Hai on the east. So this Hai is also known as Ai, or I. All right. And there builded he an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed, going on still towards the south. All right, so let's see if I can find a better map than one I just pulled, one that's closer to the land, actually. I don't have Abram's journeys, a map of Abram's journeys here. Let's see, because this shows a whole bunch of different cities. The place of Sikkim, I believe, is the same as Shechem. So Shechem will be here. All these names that it's referring to here in Genesis, they weren't called these yet. All right. These were names that were given afterward. These are names that the Israelites would have been familiar with. All right. Names like Shechem, Bethel, and Hai. Hai might have been the same, but Bethel. How come it's not showing Bethel very readily? It was a major city. What? Is it not even gonna show Bethel? Surely, right? If not, there's plenty other that show Bethel. There's Bethel Beth. I don't think that's it though. There's Shiloh. Yeah, I might just have to pull a different map because this is not showing Bethel for some reason. Bethel is like, perhaps it is down here. I do remember it being on the border of Ephraim and Benjamin. But yeah, you would think it'd be more prominent just because it was a very prominent city in ancient Israel. And that's R. Let me look on a different map real quick. Let me show y'all a different map. Usually this one's good for cities. I don't know why it doesn't highlight Bethel the way that it should. Let's see about this one. Now this was, obviously the 12 tribes came later than Abraham, but this is just a representation of the land. Here's Shechem down to Bethel. Yeah, so it was about this, it is that Bethel Beth. For some reason they didn't highlight it very well. And I, this one doesn't show I, unfortunately. Or high. But anyway, as you can see, he came from the north up here, and he's making his way south. Building altars unto the Lord the whole way, showing praise and honor to the Lord the whole way. And there was a famine in the land, and Abram went down into Egypt to sojourn there, for the famine was grievous in the land. And it came to pass when he was come near to enter into Egypt that he said unto Sarai his wife, Behold now, I know that thou art a fair woman to look upon. Therefore it shall come to pass when the Egyptians shall see thee, that they shall say, This is his wife, and they will kill me, but they will save thee alive. All right, so what I want to touch on or just speak briefly on is the fact that Abraham came from the Sumerian region. All right, the Sumerian region was one of the major world civilizations at the time. You had the Sumerian region, the Indus region, and the Egyptian region. All these were great and powerful civilizations at the time. Egypt, the one being closest to the land of Israel. Indus, we never really hear about it. We hear about the people who populate that land, the children of Ophir and Havilah, and the Jokhtanites, the Hebrews that were not chosen. But what we do here is Abraham came from Samaria, or the city of Ur specifically, and he journeyed to Canaan, but as there was a famine in the land, he went into Africa. He went into Egypt. It was a mighty civilization at the time. And he has this preconceived notion that these Egyptians, they're gonna kill me and have their way with my wife, right? All right. Verse 13, Say, I pray thee, thou art my sister, that it may be well with me for thy sake, and my soul shall live because of thee. And it came to pass that when Abram was come into Egypt, the Egyptians beheld the woman, and she was very fair. The princes also of Pharaoh saw her, and commended her before Pharaoh. And the woman was taken into Pharaoh's house, and he entreated Abram well for her sake. And he had sheep and oxen and he-asses and men servants and maid servants and she-asses and camels, right? So they brought their whole troop, so to speak, into Egypt. And the Lord plagued Pharaoh and his house with great plagues because of Sarai, Abram's wife. And Pharaoh called Abram and said, What is this that thou hast done unto me? Why didst thou not tell me that she was thy wife? Why saidst thou, She is my sister? So I might have taken her to me to wife. Now therefore, behold, thy wife, take her and go thy way. And Pharaoh commanded his men concerning him, and they sent him away and his wife and all that he had, right? So this preconceived notion that Abram had about Pharaoh was not, or the Egyptians in general, was not entirely accurate, all right? They weren't as savage as he had believed, They were more civilized than that. They were not, adulterers and murderers the way that he thought they were. At least not in that specific situation. And Abram went up out of Egypt, he and his wife, and all that he had. Oh, this is chapter 13, verse 1, by the way. He and his wife and all that he had, and Lot with him into the south. Right? So this is saying like south of Israel, right? So he went out of Egypt into the southern part of Israel. And Abram was very rich in cattle, and silver, and in gold. And he went on his journeys from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning, between Bethel and Ai, unto the place of the altar which he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together, right? They had many possessions. They were very rich, Abram and Lot. They got very wealthy when they were in Haran. And they just increased in wealth as they kept going because they were servants of God and God blessed them. And there was a strife between the herdmen of Abram's cattle and the herdmen of Lot's cattle. And the Canaanite and the Perizzite dwelt then in the land, right? So, the Canaanites had already mentioned that in the last chapter. And Abram said unto Lot, Let there be no strife, I pray thee, between me and thee, and between my herdmen and thy herdmen, for we be brethren. Is not the whole land before thee? Separate thyself, I pray thee, from me. If thou wilt take the left hand, then I will go to the right. Or if thou depart to the right hand, then I will go to the left, right? So he's saying, you don't have to be up under me anymore, Lot. We can part ways now. It's fine. And Lot lifted up his eyes and beheld all the plain of Jordan, that it was well watered everywhere, before the Lord destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah, even as the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt, as thou comest unto Zoar. Right? So they saw it was a beautiful land. All right, this is before, and Lord's will, we get to that next week. It was before God destroyed Sodom and Gomorrah. So like all the cities that were around Sodom and Gomorrah, because Sodom and Gomorrah were just the two main cities. There were plenty of other cities around them, specifically 5 cities, as it mentioned in Genesis 10. There was 5 cities around that same region that were all very prosperous, very pleasant to dwell in. Then Lot chose him all the plain of Jordan, and Lot journeyed east. And they separated themselves the one from the other. Abram dwelt in the land of Canaan, and Lot dwelt in the cities of the plain, and pitched his tent toward Sodom. All right, so in the plain of Jordan, let me just pull this up on the map here. So as you can see, this is the Jordan River. That's the Jordan River. So the plain would be around there, and specifically Sodom and Gomorrah is more like closer to the Salt Sea down here. So like that region, I suppose. Like this region. That's all like Sodom and Gomorrah type area. All right. But the men of Sodom were wicked and sinners before the Lord exceedingly. Right? So Lot went to go live in that area, but the men of that area were wicked and evil. All right. And the Lord said unto Abram, after that Lot was separated from him, Lift up now thine eyes, and look from the place where thou art northward, and southward, and eastward, and westward. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. And I will make thy seed as the dust of the earth, so that if a man can number the dust of the earth, then shall thy seed also be numbered. Arise, walk through the land in the length of it and in the breadth of it, for I will give it unto thee. Then Abram removed his tent and came and dwelt in the plain of Mamre, which is in Hebron, and built there an altar unto the Lord. All right, so a couple things I want to touch on here. First of all, God is telling him to scope out the land, and he said he's going to give it to his seed, his children after him. Abram at this point, is already 75 years old, and his wife is barren. All right? They've tried to have kids for probably decades at this point, probably even given up at this point on having kids with each other. Yet the Lord is telling him, I'm going to bless you and your children. I'm going to bless you and your children. Your children are going to be as numerous as the stars of heaven. All right. So you gotta think of the faith. You gotta think of the faith that Abraham has right here, doing all the things that God has told him, even though he can't see it. He can't have children right now, right? And God is still telling him your seed's gonna be blessed. And he's still doing all these things for the Lord, still serving the Lord, still standing fast in his faith. All right. And it's easy for us now because I ain't even gonna say it's easy to endure because it's not for most people, and I struggle as well as far as faith is concerned. But it's easy in hindsight for us to be like, oh, I would do that. Look at all the things that Abram, I would have done that. It's easy for us to say that in hindsight because we have the scriptures, because we have a reference point to look back to. Abram didn't have nothing but just the Lord moving him. The Lord telling him which way to go, the Holy Ghost moving him in visions and dreams, and even in appearances as we'll see later on down the line. But only that and the stories that his forefathers have told him about the wonderful works of the Lord. All right, and I didn't mention this last week, but if you add it up as far as how long Noah lived after the flood and when Abram was born, Abram was 68 when Noah died. Noah lived all the way up until Abram's life, till he was 68 years old. I'm not saying they had many interactions with each other because the scriptures don't talk about that. I'm not saying they did. I'm not saying they didn't. But just so you can understand, that's how long the people lived back then, or at least Noah and Shem and them. Anyway, Hebron, I'll show you Hebron on a map. Hebron is down here in the south in the land of Judah. Where is Hebron? Down here. So as you can see, it's down all the way to the south. God told him move on down. Hey, he told him scope out the land, go back and forth in it, because your children are going to inherit this land. All right. So let's keep going. Genesis chapter 14. This is very heavy. This is very heavy here. Genesis 14, start with 1. And it came to pass in the days of Amraphel, king of Shinar. All right, this Amraphel, king of Shinar, is the same as Hammurabi. All right, king of Babylon, king of ancient Babylon. Now, I touched on this in my first ever Bible History 101 that I talked about. Talked about Sumeria. And the Bible, it touches on Sumeria briefly. It says that Nimrod and this is something that we talked about last week. But it talks about Nimrod establishing Sumeria. It talks about the Tower of Babel when God split Pangaea. And here we see about Amraphel, king of Shinar. This is the same as that Hammurabi. If you look up the dates, I'm not sure that I trust the dates on when they date Hammurabi. Maybe this is a previous Hammurabi than to the one that we know who had the code. But this was around 2100, 2000 BC. That's around when this is. Probably maybe 22 to 2100 BC, give or take. That's why I don't trust the dates, because the dates that they have on Hammurabi, if you look it up, it's like 1700 BC, and that's just not accurate. The Israelites would have already been in Egypt by 1700 BC. Yes, Abraham was far before that. Again, maybe this is a Hammurabi that predates the one that we know in history. But this is Hammurabi. This is just a Hebrew transliteration of the name Hammurabi, king of Shinar, Sumeria. Arioch, king of Elasar. Chedorlaomer, king of Elam. That would be in Persia. I'm not sure about Elasar. I've looked into this, but I can never find anything straight on where Elasar is. It's probably a city of the east, if I had to guess. and Tidal, king of nations. He does come from the east. He comes from east of Persia, if I recall correctly, over there towards India. That these made war with Barah, king of Sodom, and with Bersha, king of Gomorrah, Shinam, king of Admah, Shem-Eber, king of Zeboam, and the king of Bela, which is Zoar. All right, so all these are Canaanites. All these are Canaanites. These kings of the east came and made war with these Canaanite kings. All these were joined together in the Vale of Siddim, which is the Salt Sea. All right, so as I just showed a while ago, the Salt Sea is what's known today as the Dead Sea. And the Vale of Siddim would be like the same region where Lot was living. All right. So the Salt Sea. Yes, the Salt Sea. 12 years they served Chedorlaomer, and in the 13th year they rebelled. And in the 14th year came Chedorlaomer and the kings that were with him and smote the Rephaims in Ashtaroth, Karnaim, and the Zuzims in Ham, and the Emims in Shaveh Kirjathaim, and the Horites in their Mount Seir unto El Paran, which is by the wilderness, right? So this whole region, this whole southern region, because it mentioned Mount Seir. Let me look at this real quick. It mentioned Mount Seir, and that's where the Edomites ended up taking over. Is it even going to show Mount Seir on here? Oh, it shows Arabah, Mayon. Yeah, it's not even going to show Sierra on here. I got to pick a different map. This one's disappointing me. All right, so yeah, there's Tamar. It shows Edom, but it's not showing Sierra. Modern day Petra is Sierra, but Sierra is down here in Edom. All right, so let's just say Sierra is down there in that region. As we can see, it says the Vale of Siddim. So they're taking all this. They're taking all this. The Chedorlaomer and them. They're coming from the east, and they're taking all this, taking over all this region around the Salt Sea. All right. And some of these places like Kirjathaim is even west of the Salt Sea. By the wilderness, and they returned and came to En Mishpat, which is Kadesh, and smote all the country of the Amalekites. This is before the Amalekites even existed, because the Amalekites came from Edom. So he's just letting you know it's the same land that the Amalekites inhabited, which is south of Judah. All right, it's south of the region that we just talked about, around the same region of Edom, but even more westward. All right, and also the Amorites that dwelt in Hazez on Tamar. And there went out the king of Sodom, and the king of Gomorrah, and the king of Admah, and the king of Zeboam, and the king of Bela. The same is Zoar. And they joined battle with them in the Vale of Siddim, with Chedorlaomer, the king of Elam, and with Tidal, king of nations, and Amraphel, king of Shinar, and Arioch, king of Elasar. 4 kings with 5, right? So the 5 Canaanite kings versus the 4 kings of the east. All right. So, I do got that right. Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're right. Verse 10, and the Vale of Siddim was full of slime pits, and the kings of Sodom and Gomorrah fled and fell there. And they that remained fled to the mountain, right? So the Canaanites were no match for these kings of the east. The kings of, the king of ancient Babylon, which is, Samaria, Shinar, the king of Elam, which predated Persia, Tidal, king of nations, and Chedorlaomer. They could not stand against them. Chedorlaomer is the king of, I was missing Arioch, king of Elasar. But either way, Canaanites were no match for these kings of the east. And they took all the goods of Sodom and Gomorrah and all their victuals and went their way. And they took Lot, Abram's brother's son, right, his nephew, who dwelt in Sodom, and his goods, and departed, right? So they took Lot into captivity, took all his goods as well. And there came one that had escaped and told Abram the Hebrew, right? So Abram is a Hebrew living amongst these Canaanites. Hebrew as in he descends from Eber. All right, we talked about that last week. For he dwelt in the plain of Mamre the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. And these were confederate with Abraham, right? Abram was not, hateful towards the Canaanites by any means. He got along with them very well. They were his neighbors. And when Abram heard that his brother was taken captive, he armed his trained servants, born in his own house, 318, and pursued them unto Dan. You see that right there? So when we talk about, or whenever I said that they were very wealthy, Abram and Lot were very wealthy, and they had servants. I ain't talking about he had a butler and a gardener. No. He had 318 servants. This doesn't even say that he took all his servants, right? He armed his trained servants. That's what it says there. It says he armed his trained servants. So there could have been servants who he had not trained. You see what I'm saying? Who he had not trained in combat. They stayed back with the stuff. But he took 318 of them and pursued them unto Dan. Now Dan is in the far north of Israel, right? Dan is up here. Right. So they were making war like down here in this region. All right. These kings of the east came and fought with these Canaanites all throughout that region of the south. But as they were leaving, say like the kings of the east, they went back up this way, going back to make their way back east. You see what I'm saying? And Abram, he came and he followed them. All right. He pursued them unto Dan, and he divided himself against them, he and his servants, by night, and smote them, and pursued them unto Hobah, which is on the left hand of Damascus. See, I don't even know if this shows Damascus on this map. But Damascus is in Syria. Oh yeah, here it goes. Right, so he called up to him in Dan, hit him with some guerrilla warfare tactics, which were unknown to the men of that time. All right, this was very, what's the word I'm looking for? Ingenuity, but it was intuitive, right? It was, you could even say revolutionary in a certain sense. This was game-changing warfare tactics that nobody had ever seen before. He called up to him in Dan, like right here, and then followed him and hit him with guerrilla warfare all the way up to like Hobah region, which would be left of Damascus, all right, or west of Damascus rather. All right, and he brought back all the goods. And also brought again his brother Lot, and his goods, and the women also, and the people, right? So when they came in and they took slaves, they took men, women, and children. That's what these kings of the east did. Abram came through with his servants and defeated them, all right, with the guerrilla warfare tactics. And the king of Sodom went out to meet him after his return from the slaughter of Chedorlaomer, and of the kings that were with him at the valley of Shaveh, which is the king's dale. And Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought forth bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Right? So we didn't hear nothing about, of all these kings that were just listed, the 9 kings that were listed that went to war with each other. We never hear of Melchizedek. Now it's saying he's the king of Salem. Melchizedek, the name means king of righteousness, but it's also saying he's the king of Salem, being interpreted king of priests, or rather king of peace. All right, and it says he was the priest of the Most High God who brought bread and wine. All right, maybe I'll do a lesson on Melchizedek at some point, but Hebrews 7. Goes into who Melchizedek is, and just like I said, maybe I'll do a lesson on another time. But we never see the origins of Melchizedek in all of the lineages that's in Genesis. We never see no origin of Melchizedek. We never hear of him again by this name at all in Genesis. This is it. Just here in Genesis 14, after Abram hunted down, rescued the people, defeated the kings of the east. This is the only time we see Melchizedek. He brings forth bread and wine, and he was a priest and a king of the Most High God. And he blessed him and said, "Blessed be Abram of the Most High God, possessor of heaven and earth." So Melchizedek just showed up whenever everybody's celebrating. All these kings are coming together to rejoice over what Abram has done. And here comes Melchizedek in the midst, bringing bread and wine, blessing Abram as a priest of the Most High God. "And blessed be the Most High God, which had delivered thine enemies into thy hand." And he gave him tithes of all. And Abram ended up giving Melchizedek tithes of all because he was a priest. He was the priest of the Most High. All right, verse 21. "And the king of Sodom said unto Abram, Give me the persons and take the goods to thyself. And Abram said to the king of Sodom, I have lifted up my hand unto the Lord, the Most High God, the possessor of heaven and earth, that I will not take from a thread even to a shoe latchet, and that I will not take anything that is thine, lest thou shouldest say, I have made Abram rich." Right? So Abram had the wherewithal and the foresight to say, if I accept anything from these Canaanites, they're going to use that against me down the line. All right? These men of Sodom, they're not righteous men. They're wicked men. And any chance they get to have the upper hand on me, I know they'll take it. So I'm not going to give them that chance. All right? Save only, and by the way, Abram didn't need anything at this point. He didn't need any money. He didn't need any, he didn't need any more servants. He didn't need any more cattle or crops or anything like that. He was good. He was set. All right. Save only that which the young men have eaten, and the portion of the men which went with me, Aner, Eshcol, and Mamre. Let them take their portion. He said, look, you ain't giving nothing to me. I don't want anything from you. Thanks, but no thanks. But provide for my men here, your people who have fought for you. All right. So yeah, let's keep going. In Genesis 15. After these things, the word of the Lord came unto Abram in a vision. So just so you're made aware, mostly as the Lord has been dealing with Abram, it's been in visions and dreams. Right? That's how the Lord deals with his prophets. But as we saw in the last chapter, the Lord visited Abram through Melchizedek, right? The king of Salem, the priest of the Most High God. And in this case, in chapter 15, he's visiting him in a vision, saying, Fear not, Abram, I am thy shield and thy exceeding great reward. And Abram said, Lord God, what wilt thou give me, seeing I go childless, and the steward of my house is this Eliezer of Damascus? He's like, look, the one who is set to inherit all my things are this man who I've hired, right? Who I'm not related to. He's not even of my kin. He's from Damascus. And Abram said, Behold, to me thou hast given no seed, and lo, one born in my house is mine heir. Okay, so yeah, he must have bought Eliezer's parents then. Or rather paid them, whichever it may be. I don't know if they were bond servants or hired servants. And behold, the word of the Lord came unto him, saying, This shall not be thine heir, but he that shall come forth out of thine own bowels shall be thy heir. You see right there. So here we see that Abram, he's been listening to God as God has been telling him, hey, go here, do that. I'm going to give you children. But Abram, at this point, he's probably going on 80. We seen that he was 75 once he left Haran, right? So he's probably 80, maybe in his 80s at this point. And he's like, look, I ain't got no kids, right? Who's going to be my heir? And the Lord's reassuring him, it's going to be somebody who proceeds from your loins, right? It's going to be your own sperm who's going to be your children, who's going to be your heir, rather. And he brought him forth abroad and said, Look now toward heaven and tell the stars, if thou be able to number them. And he said unto him, So shall thy seed be. And he believed in the Lord, and he counted it to him for righteousness. You see that right there? So Abram was a very righteous man because of his belief. And he said unto him, I am the Lord that brought thee out of Ur of the Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. And he said, Lord God, whereby shall I know that I shall inherit it? And he said unto him, Take me a heifer of 3 years old, and a she-goat of 3 years old, and a ram of 3 years old, and a turtle dove, and a young pigeon. And he took unto him all these, and divided them in the midst, and laid each piece one against another. But the birds divided he not, right? He didn't chop them up, he left them whole. And when the fowls came down upon the carcasses, Abram drove them away. And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Right? So Abram is being shown a vision because he just did the sacrifice unto the Lord, right? And he's being shown a vision now, or a dream, a horror of the bondage that his children was going to have to serve in Egypt. All right. And also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge, and afterward shall they come out with great substance. Right. And that's what happened. If you read about the Exodus, when we get there, we'll talk about the Exodus. And thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. But in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. Right, so he's saying, look, you got to go. You're gonna die in peace, but your children are gonna go serve in Egypt. And once they get out of Egypt, they're gonna come back. They're gonna come back, and they're gonna, wipe out these Canaanites. All right, because their judgment has not come yet. It's not time for their judgment yet. Wait till you multiply your children in Egypt. They're going to come back, and they're going to judge the Amorites at that point. Their judgment will be time. It will be time for their judgment at that point. I'm getting tongue twisted, but you understand what I'm saying. And it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram, saying, Unto thy seed have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. Right. So that is the land that the Lord has promised to his chosen people. All right. From the river of Egypt, and I'm about to show on this Middle East map. From the river of Egypt, as you can see, the Nile here. From Goshen is up here at the top. Goshen is up here at the top. To the river Euphrates is this river right here. So it would be all this land. From Goshen to the river Euphrates. All right. And we've talked about that a bit at the beginning of Bible History 101, I believe, whenever we talked about Joshua and, his wonderful exploits against the Canaanites. In the book of Joshua towards the end, you can read about the specific allotment of land. All right. Verse 19, the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites and the Hittites and the Perizzites and the Rephaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites. So that's all the land that he's talking about. Actually belongs to the Israelites, to the seed of Abram. All right. Chapter 16. Now Sarai, Abram's wife, bare him no children. And she had a handmaid, an Egyptian, whose name was Hagar. And Sarai said unto Abram, Behold now, the Lord hath restrained me from bearing. I pray thee, go in unto my handmaid. It may be that I may obtain children by her. And Abram hearkened to the voice of Sarai. Right? So this is Sarai's plan that she hatched up. All right? God didn't tell Abraham to go in unto Hagar. This was Sarai's idea. It wasn't even Abram's idea. He wasn't pushing her like, hey, you got a pretty nice looking maid over there. she might could give me some children. Like, he didn't do that. This was all Sarai's plan. All right. She said she's going to be my surrogate mother. All right. She's going to be my surrogate to have this child for us. And Sarai, Abram's wife, took Hagar, her maid, the Egyptian, after Abram had dwelt 10 years in the land of Canaan, right? So this would be around the age of 85. And gave her to her husband, Abram, to be his wife. And he went in unto Hagar, and she conceived. And when she saw that she had conceived, her mistress was despised in her eyes. You see that right there? So Hagar now thinks she's better than Sarai. Even though she's the handmaid, just doing what she was told, now that she's pregnant with Abram's baby, she thinks, oh, I'm hot stuff now, right? And Sarai said unto Abram, verse 5. And Sarai said unto Abram, my wrong be upon thee. I have given my maid into thy bosom. And when she saw that she had conceived, I was despised in her eyes. The Lord judge between me and thee. She said, look, I know I told you to do it, but it's your fault. Ain't that just like a woman? I know it was my idea, but now that it didn't go in my favor, things went wrong, it's your fault. That's what Sarai is saying to Abram here. But Abram said unto Sarai, behold, thy maid is in thy hand. Do to her as it pleaseth thee. Right? So Abram's like, this is your maid. You told me to do this. I don't care about this woman. And when Sarai dealt hardly with her, she fled from her face. Right? So Sarai starts smacking her around a little bit. All right? She's like, yeah, you pregnant, but your face ain't pregnant. Pop, pop, pop. Get out of here. And the angel of the Lord found her by a fountain of water in the wilderness, by the fountain in the way to Shur. And he said, Hagar, Sarai's maid, whence camest thou? And whither wilt thou go? And she said, I flee from the face of my mistress Sarai. Right? So an angel visited Hagar, who was pregnant. And she said, look, I'm running away from my mistress. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, return to thy mistress and submit thyself under her hands. Right? So the angel is like, look, you better go back and listen to her. All right? She was chosen by God to carry his chosen seed. All right? And the angel of the Lord said unto her, I will multiply thy seed exceedingly, that it shall not be numbered for multitude. Right? But the angel also said, look, I'm still going to bless you. Your son's going to be blessed as well, but he's not chosen though. And the angel of the Lord said unto her, behold, thou art with child, and shalt bear a son, and shalt call his name Ishmael, because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. You see that right there? So all that Hagar was kind of pressured into here, and God heard. That's why his name is Ishmael. God is heard. All right? Because the Lord hath heard thy affliction. And he will be a wild man. His hand will be against every man. See, that's Ishmael. That's some Arabs over there. That's why they done moved everywhere all across the world just to blow stuff up. All right? The wild man against every man. And every man's hand against him. And everybody hates Arabs. Because that's the Islamic terrorists, right? Are Arabs. And he shall dwell in the presence of all his brethren, right? So Ishmael is all the countries that are run by Ishmael is from West Africa and North Africa all the way over until like you get to the borders of China. All right, they're all over. All right, in the presence of all his brethren. And she called the name of the Lord that spoke unto her, thou God seest me. For she said, have I also here looked after him that seeth me? Wherefore the well was called Bir-la-Haroi. Behold, it is between Kadesh and Bered. Bir-la-Haroi. Give me 1 second, because in the 1611, it's going to give you the exact, I believe it's going to give you the exact definition of Bir-la-Haroi. Bir, I believe, is a well. Give me 1 second. This is Genesis 16 and 14, talking about Bir-la-Haroi. 1 second. Give me 1 second. 16 and 13. Does it say right? Yeah. The well of him that liveth and seeth me. All right. Bir-la-Haroi. So yeah, Bir is going to be well, and Lahai Roy is him that seeth me. Or rather, he that liveth and seeth me. All right. So, Wherefore the well was called Bir Lahai Roy. Behold, it's between Kadesh and Bered. I don't even know if this is going to show Kadesh on here. Much less Bered. Maybe we'll see Kadesh Barnea. I do not see it. Perhaps I'm looking over it, but it's not that important to know exactly where this is. But I'd still like to know, because I like getting into these geographical areas, but I'll keep it moving. Oh, Kadesh is up here. I don't know if it's the same Kadesh. The only Kadesh that I see is in the north of Israel, just south of Dan. All right. And Hagar bare Abram a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bare Ishmael. And Abram was 86 years old when Hagar bare Ishmael to Abram. Right, so he was 86. When he had his first son, he was 86 years old when he had his first son. All right. So now we're getting into Genesis 17. And when Abram was 90 years old and 9, right, so 13 years later, the Lord appeared to Abram and said unto him, I am the Almighty God. Walk before me and be thou perfect. And I will make my covenant between me and thee, and will multiply thee exceedingly. All right, so first of all, notice people in Christianity be like, oh, well, you can't be perfect. They just reject the entire Bible. They just reject the scriptures. Not only all the apostles said we got to be perfect, Christ said we got to be perfect. But if you look, like we read about Job this past week when it comes to the Sabbath lesson, but also with Abram. And even last week with Noah, it said he was perfect. With Abram, God gave him a task. He gave him a charge, a commandment to be perfect in walking before the Lord. All right? Now, we all fall short of the grace of the glory of the Lord. I'm not saying that we don't. But we should strive for that perfection. That's what is required of us. A lot of people don't understand that. In Christianity, people tell you just do whatever you want to and say, God forgive me, and you'll be all right. That's not what the Bible says at all. All right? Verse 3. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, so I'm assuming at this point that this is either a vision or a dream. All right? When it said the Lord appeared to Abraham, we know that the Most High God, the Father, did not step down and walk in front of him. That's not how the Father operates. But in either way, he's speaking to Abram. And Abram fell on his face, and God talked with him, saying, As for me, behold, my covenant is with thee, and thou shalt be a father of many nations. Neither shall thy name any more be called Abram, but thy name shall be Abraham. All right? For a father of many nations have I made thee. Right? So Abram would be, I believe, is just the father of a nation, perhaps. Yeah, let me look this real quick. Abram, name, meaning. Abraham means father of many nations. High father, father of nations, or a father of a nation, rather. Exalted father. All right, exalted father. Yeah, so it just means father, right? Exalted father, high father. All right. Abraham means father of many nations. All right. And I will make thee exceeding fruitful, and I will make nations of thee, and kings shall come out of thee. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee, and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant, to be a God unto thee, and to thy seed after thee. Right? So initially, the Most High had just promised Abram, hey, look, I'm going to make of you a great nation. Right? a chosen nation, a holy nation. But now he's saying, look, I'm gonna upgrade that, right? If you keep my covenant, if you be perfect before me, I'm going to establish you to be a father of many nations. All right. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. All right, yeah, so he's talking about, obviously, we know he's talking about the 12 tribes of the children of Israel, his chosen and holy nation. And God said unto Abraham, thou shalt keep my covenant, therefore, thou and thy seed after thee in their generations. This is my covenant, which ye shall keep between me and you and thy seed after thee. Every man-child among you shall be circumcised. And ye shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall be a token of the covenant betwixt me and you. Right? So that's what circumcision represents. It represents a token of the covenant between God and his chosen seed. All right, his holy seed. All right. And he that is 8 days old shall be circumcised among you, every man-child in your generations. He that is born in the house or bought with money of any stranger, which is not of thy seed. He that is born in thy house and he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised, right? So not just your children, but also your servants. If the servant is born in your house or born, or it really is just said, he that is born in thy house or bought with money, right? So anybody who is going to stay with you, hey, they gotta be circumcised. He that is born in thy house, he that is bought with thy money must needs be circumcised. And my covenant shall be in your flesh for an everlasting covenant. You see that right there? Everlasting mean never ending. By the way, people saying you don't have to get circumcised. You don't follow that everlasting covenant, evidently. And the uncircumcised man-child, whose flesh of his foreskin is not circumcised, that soul shall be cut off from his people. He hath broken my covenant. You see that right there? They broke the covenant. If you choose not to get circumcised, then you've broken the covenant. Now, we understand that everybody, and when you read the New Testament, we understand that people come from different backgrounds in life, and we're not saying that you're shunned from Christ and never can enter Christ ever if you weren't circumcised on the 8th day or whatever. No. In Romans 4, it talks about how those who come in the truth uncircumcised follow in the steps of Abraham. And as you see with Abraham, as we're about to read, he came into the truth. He started walking in the light of God without being circumcised for 99 years. All right. And God said unto Abraham, as for Sarai thy wife, thou shalt not call her name Sarai, but Sarah shall her name be. Right? So Sarah, or Sarai meaning princess or noblewoman, and Sarah rather being, more exalted, like a high princess. All right. I could have that backwards. Let me look at Sarai's name meaning real quick. Sarai name meaning palace, princess, palace or princess, mistress even. The feminine of Sar or Shar, or Sarai means noblewoman. So Sarah name meaning from noblewoman to princess might actually be what it is. Yeah. So from noblewoman to princess. So it's just more exalted. More exalted. You change your name from noblewoman to princess. All right. And I will bless her and give thee a son also of her. Yea, I will bless her, and she shall be a mother of nations. Kings of people shall be of her. Then Abraham fell upon his face and laughed and said in his heart, shall a child be born unto him that is 100 years old? And shall Sarah that is 90 years old bear? Right. So Sarah is 10 years younger than Abraham, but 90 and 100. Right. And Abraham, he's laughing at the idea. right? And he's saying all these things within his mind, right? He's not even speaking out loud. He's laughing, but he's, really, Sarah? She's 90 years old. I'm 100, And Abraham said unto God, oh, that Ishmael might live before thee, right? So he's already done all this before the Lord for his faith, but he's still doubting, right? And naturally, right? What 99-year-old man is going to believe that he's going to have another son, right? And to a wife that's 90, And God said, Sarah, thy wife, shall bear thee a son indeed. Right? So Abraham's like, hey, bless my son Ishmael. God's like, yeah, whatever. Sarah is the one that's going to have the holy seed. And thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant. Right? So Abraham is laughing here. That's why God said, name him Isaac. Isaac means laughter. That's what Isaac means. He's laughing at the idea that God is going to give him a son at 100 years old. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I have heard thee. Right? So he's like, I'm not going to neglect Ishmael entirely. I hear you. He's just not chosen. Behold, I have blessed him and will make him fruitful and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, right? So he's like, yeah, I got you. I hear you on Ishmael. Ishmael is going to be a great nation as well. They're going to be blessed. They're going to do wonderful things, all that. But Isaac, the one that's coming next, that's the one who I'm choosing my covenant with. That's going to be my people. My people are going to come out of Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at this set time in the next year, right? So in a year's time. In a year's time, you're going to have Isaac. And he left off talking with him, and God went up from Abraham, right? So he got done speaking, and God went up from Abraham. So this actually does make it seem like it was an angel who visited Abraham, and he left in a chariot, right? He left in one of the crafts, one of the ships that they have, one of the clouds, as another scripture may say. And Abraham took Ishmael his son, and all that were born in his house, and all that were bought with his money, every male among the men of Abraham's house, and circumcised the flesh of their foreskin in the selfsame day, in the very same day as God had said unto him. So you got to think, because earlier we was talking about in Genesis 14 that it's at well over 300, at least well over 300 servants that Abraham has. So it's the same day. You got to imagine, ain't nobody ever heard of cutting your foreskin off at this point. You got Abraham at this point. You got Abraham, who's 99 years old. All right. And his son, who's 13. And all these grown men servants, their children. This is wild. There's probably some that run away, who tried to run away. Abraham had to be like, nah, get back here. If you're going to work for me, this is what you got to do. Verse 24, and Abraham was 90 years old and 9 when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. 99 years old. So I don't want to hear no excuse from nobody talking about, well, I ain't got to be circumcised. Abraham was 99 years old. He did it himself. They got doctors who'll do that for you now. You ain't got to do it yourself. You ain't got to take a rusty pair of scissors like Abraham did. And Ishmael, his son, was 13 years old when he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. See, all praises to the Most High God that he said 8 days, that a baby 8 days old. Hey, praise God. I was circumcised as an 8-day-old baby. I don't remember that pain. But if you're 13 years old like Ishmael, you're going to remember that pain for the rest of your life. Abraham, he's 99, so like, as far as, he's going to remember it as well, but he's like, he's already an old man. He's dedicated to the cause at this point. All right. 13 years old, he was circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin. Verse 26, in the self same day was Abraham circumcised and Ishmael his son. Right? The same day. And all the men of his house, born in the house and bought with money of the stranger, were circumcised with him. You see it right there. So, yeah, it was a lot of sore men for for the next few weeks around Abraham's living quarters. I wasn't gonna say. Well, it does say all the men of his house. It does use the word house, even though Abraham, he dwelt in tents. As you can. As we've been reading, he would just pick up his tent and go wherever the Lord told him to go. He was a pilgrim in the earth, as it says in Hebrews.